Hi, Lenore, can you hear me?
What's up?
Hey, do you know if are we waiting for somebody right now or?
Yep. It's 10 minutes until class starts.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I've got it here as 5 after the half, but it starts at 45 after, huh? Not 35 after.
Yeah, pretty much. Normally they come around like 5 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes. They're kind of lethargic.
Yeah, okay, no worries. All right.
All right, man, take it easy.
Yeah, thank you. Mhm.
This is the one I should record on my own.
Yeah. Just see it on the screen. But you don't need to do it on your computer. Do it on that. But you don't have to do it on your computer.
Yeah, I'm gonna start it here, and I don't think anybody's gonna show to it because they have a guest lecture.
One thing you can do, right? I would change the view of the speaker so that instead of it being, well, I guess it's only one student, but what it will do will, instead of it being a grid here, it'll one person, so they're full screen rather than scanning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do that right away.
Okay. Yeah. But just so you know, now if you have nobody in here, then.
Hey, Marko.
Yep.
Hey, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I can't share the screen from here. I think I need some elevated privileges.
Okay, 1 second. Can you try it now? Sharif, can you hear me? Excellent.
Yep, that did it.
Awesome. And if you have a camera, we can actually have you visible as well. Great, thank you. In about 1 minute.
Okay, is the presentation still coming across like this?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll start in about 1 minute. Actually, we're officially starting at 11:45, but I want to make sure that if we have a couple of stragglers, that everybody joins in. And once again, large proportion of the class is actually watching the recorded lecture at a later date, just FYI. Okay.
Okay, so should I get started?
I'll do the introductions. 1 second.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Blockchain Innovation in Digital Arts and Sciences. So as announced earlier last week, today we have a very special guest. We have Sharif Abushadi from Near Protocol, and he'll be our speaker today for both periods. And we'll go through a part of it will be a lecture. There will be some hands-on exercises. So we kind of break up the rhythm of these hour and a half ahead of us. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot more. I'm gonna pass the mic to Sharif, let him introduce himself and take it from there. Sharif, it's your mic.
Thanks, Marko. How's my volume coming across? Is it okay? Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Okay, nice. Hi, everybody. My name's Sharif. I am a web developer by trade, I guess, and a teacher. I've been programming for, I guess, maybe 20-ish years, and I've taught thousands of adults how to learn about software. And here I am today to talk to you about near protocol and what that is, where it fits in the story of the last, I don't know, several decades of software and technology. So hopefully you like this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to figure out who's here, and there's not that many people I think who are synchronously attending, but hopefully we can get some survey responses coming through. Why we're here, what's happening, and what you can do about it. All right, that's the agenda for today. So I just want to start with a couple of basic questions, and I'm hoping that this works out. If not, we can skip over it, but you should see on the screen a QR code or a URL, slido.com, with a kind of a code at the bottom, near-UF for University of Florida. And you should be able to either take a picture of the QR code and jump to a URL, or type in slido.com wherever you are, and then at the top of the page, near-UF, and answer this question. What do you think of when you hear the term blockchain? As people answer, this ticker will start to go up. So it looks like 2 people have answered, Bitcoin and complicated. That's great. I think you can submit multiple answers as well. I hope you can, at least. And I just want to get a sense of, kind of what you think of when you hear of blockchain. What does that actually mean to you? So we've got maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 people online here. So I'll wait till at least half the people have answered, or some uncomfortable amount of time has passed. So 4, 5, 6, 7 answers, something like that. Yeah, you don't need to put your name in there, Marko, but or maybe that's what the person thinks of. That's pretty funny. Okay, so yeah, cryptocurrency, obviously that's a big deal. 7 answers. 8 people answering now. That might be about it. 1 or 2 others. I'll give it a few more seconds. If anybody has any responses, again, slido.com, and you can type in the code near-UF, and we'll repeat this now for a couple of different slides, or you can take a picture of the QR code. Great, looks like about 8 people are going to participate. So, this idea of cryptocurrency kind of taking over the conversation around blockchain is really kind of a sign of our times. And believe it or not, 5-10 years from now, this idea of a cryptocurrency being such a hot topic in blockchain, you may be surprised, is going to be, I don't know, as exciting as, like, the App Store is or something. It'll be something you're aware of, but it won't be the focus of the technology. Exciting as having a Facebook profile or a Twitter account or something. It'll be something you're aware of, but it won't be the main conversation. There are many other conversations to be had around blockchain. So if you've done any of your own research on blockchain, I'm sure you've run across Andreas Antonopoulos. He talks about what's actually happening here. I'm going to try and kind of paint that picture for you a little bit today. But let's keep going. Clearly, the winner by a stretch is cryptocurrency. That's what everybody thinks of typically when they think of blockchain. So it looks like we've got a representative group here. Have you ever used cryptocurrency? You can guess. Did I predict what you were going to say in the last slide, or is this dynamic text on the screen? I'll let you wonder about that. Have you ever used a cryptocurrency? Either no, never, yes, sometimes, yes, only once, absolutely, maybe all the time. You're living off of Satoshis right now, stacking those sats. Maybe you're not sure. So 6, 7 answers. Yeah, so not a lot of experience using cryptocurrencies. Either never for the vast majority of people here. It's just a handful, yes, sometimes, and yes, but only once. Okay, so that's an important question, because if I asked you, do you use, high-speed internet in the, late 90s, you might have answered, similar. Do you use, some kind of, I don't know what, email or a browser, a web browser in 1995 or 1994? We may have a similar profile like this. The fact is, even though cryptocurrency is all the rage right now because number go up, the fact is that this will become part of our everyday lives, in the near future. So do you know anybody who uses crypto then? If you don't use it yourself, how about, do you know anybody? And so a few different answers here. Many people I know, some people I know. So most people don't use it. A couple of people do, but in this group, most people don't use cryptocurrencies. And it looks like everybody knows somebody. So it's not so far away, is it? It's not so far away. It's coming. How far away? You know, how many more weeks, months, years before everybody has a cell phone that you know, before everybody has a website, before everybody has a Facebook account. So the wave front is on its way. It's arriving as we speak. Okay. So it looks like about 7 people answered. That's good enough for now. If you have any questions in general now, I just want to open this up. You can basically post any questions at all. So this is the general Q&A you should see in the tab there, just basically general Q&A. Any questions at all that you might have, feel free to ask them. You know, what is the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? What is Ethereum to begin? What's a smart contract? Whatever it is that you want to ask. And these questions will stay with us throughout the presentation. We can come back to them and revisit them at various intervals, but I want to get an idea, what questions do you have? What burning questions do you have? So that's what this slide is for. And if you post a question, let me see if I can set something up here. So let's say, what is the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Let's say that's a question I'll ask. And if I send it, it should appear on the screen here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, so if you have any questions, I'd like you to post those now. And in the end, you can post these questions throughout the presentation, by the way, right into the Q&A. So right in that interface that you have when you open this application, there should be a tab there that says Q&A, and you should be able to type in your question, any question at all that's on your mind. So someone's asking, I heard recently that cryptocurrency blockchain has a huge output of energy emissions and such. Do you know if there's anything coming to remedy that? Short answer is yes. And we can talk about what's coming to remedy that a little bit later. We can revisit that question. Any other questions? Any other questions that we want to ask at this point? Okay, I'll just wait a few more seconds. And if there aren't any other questions, looks like we've got maybe almost 20 participants right now in the call. So if there's anybody else that has questions, feel free to ask. And this is just sort of general questions you have about this. It doesn't have to be a smart question. We're not trying to impress each other with these questions. They're anonymous. You can see if you don't want to put your name in there, that's fine. Just to kind of get the conversation going, to hear from you, I'd love to get a sense of what questions do you have at this point. All right, so just a few more seconds and then I'll move on if there aren't any other questions at this point, and we'll see the slide come up again later. So why are we here? I am going to try and convince you in the next couple of minutes that this is a pivotal moment in human history. Okay, brace yourself. So here's the story. We can take a look as if there's a kind of a rainbow, you know, whatever, choose your favorite color of this rainbow, reaching from, you know, the mid 1900s basically into this decade. And one of these layers of the rainbow, let's call it Web 0, is the connected web. Computers the size of a house, shrinking now to the size of a mouse in your pocket, always connected, always on, and you know, many times more powerful than anything we could have conceived of in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s when we were first defining what is von Neumann architecture, what is a Turing machine, you know, what is a programming language, these kinds of basic questions. Are we going to stick with analog computers or digital computers? That was a big question for a while. And so over the last, you know, 60, 70 years, and now 80 years, we're saying, there's been this sort of connection. Computers getting smaller, getting connected, getting more reliably connected, and now in your pocket is something about the size of a pack of cigarettes that is constantly connected with high-speed bandwidth, the kind that was hardly affordable to companies just 20, 30 years ago, is now you know, yours for the price of a phone plan. Maybe even you got the phone for free from your phone company for signing up for a 2-year plan. So that's the connected web. It's always on. The readable web, Web 1, we can say started with, you know, ARPANET, DARPANET, that kind of scene, bulletin board systems in the 80s, if you've ever heard of those, you know, encyclopedias online. There used to be these big books dozens of them sitting on students' bookshelves in high school and college where you used to look things up, believe it or not. I had one of those sets. And now you can press a button on your phone and ask Siri for the weather, in which Siri will read the weather from the web and tell you. That's just mind-boggling. And so here, the web over the last 50 odd years has been becoming more and more readable, more and more accessible to us, and that's because these computers are getting smaller. They're always connected, and the mechanisms of connecting these machines, protocols like TCP/IP, HTTP, making it easy to guarantee that data moves from one computer to another, making it easy to specify how those connections happen. We're going to get some data, we're going to post some data, all of that being part of the readable web. Web 2, the writable web. Now, from the 80s, maybe bulletin board systems, in the 90s, email, some basic websites, forms, signing up, I don't know what, and then of course the social web, Twitter, Facebook, now TikTok, and what's that? The name of that thing that everybody's spending time on now? I can never remember the name of this thing. Starts with a C. People spend like 6 to 8 hours just on a call together with each other, talking about who knows what. That sort of ever-present contribution, what Clay Shirky called "Here Comes Everybody" in a book, called "Here Comes Everybody" that he wrote about 15, 18 years ago. That is the writable web, where instead of spending our time, on television, for example, we would spend it creating and producing. And of course, everybody knows about, children earning a family's wage, opening presents on the kitchen table, for example. That's all part of the writable web, where we've grown accustomed to contributing something of ourselves and putting it online for others to consume. There's a bit of an echo, by the way. I don't know if we can mute that microphone, whatever that is. That would be helpful. So Web 3, the trusted web now, starting in the mid-1970s, maybe you could say 1976, with a paper by Diffie and Hellman, crediting Ralph Merkle with basically exchanging exchanging secrets in public. How do you send a secret to somebody that you can use to agree on this for some cryptographic reasons, because you want to encode a message in some way that nobody else can read it? How do you exchange the secrets in an untrusted place, in a place where there are adversaries who are trying to maybe steal your secrets? So that's 1976. A fellow named Chom wrote several papers about this, lots of research, through the early 80s, and then invented something called e-cash, I guess, that didn't quite succeed, but was an idea of this kind of money on this substrate of trusted web. And then Nick Szabo with Hashcash, Wei Day with B-Money, and Alan Back and others in the cypherpunk movement, talking about how do we stay anonymous, how do we transact anonymously or pseudonymously, how do we maintain our privacy in the public sphere as things become more public. And you may have heard words like panopticon and things like that tossed around. So 2008, 2009, Bitcoin is invented as a blockchain version 1 or generation 1. Ethereum a few years later, 2014, 2015, as blockchain generation 2. And now several smart contract platforms, including Near, competing for market share, trying to figure out how do we make Ethereum faster and cheaper. That's the bottom line. So the trusted web, on top of these machines that are in our pockets and always on top of this ubiquity, availability of information that you find everywhere, on top of our ability to contribute, a random song to our mother while we're driving, to school in the car in the morning, literally contributing anything that we want, including, exchanging bank, information and so on. On top of all of this stuff, we've added this layer of truth, where essentially it becomes too expensive to lie. So this layer of truth is the trusted web then, on which we can put trust. And into that soil of trust, we can start to plant things that really matter to us, like money, like ownership, provenance, where has something been, where has it come from, and identity. Who are we actually. And this has always been this sort of trusted layer, has always been the realm of massive institutions in recent human history, the firm, organizations, companies like banks, and governments, of course. And so now we're able to really put some things that matter into this substrate. And so what you'll find appearing, words like decentralized autonomous organizations, literally a company that is running in this trusted layer that's just a collection of software, a few hundred or a few thousand lines of code running that can manage the coordination of human beings. If you want to agree on something, you get enough people to sign a signature. You've got 10 members, K of 10, 6 of 10, or 8 of 10 need to sign in order to approve some transaction. Token economics and incentivization mechanisms, mechanism design, creating environments where people behave in a specific way in order to earn rewards. And then, of course, what they talk about in terms of total disintermediation right now. So imagine an API for civic engagement where you want to do anything from like file a report regarding a pothole to maybe voting to direct some of your taxes to fixing that pothole and having that be accountable from the moment you pay the taxes to the moment the pothole is filled. Or maybe a borders API where you can subscribe to a service that allows you to maintain some minimum level of accountability so that you can move through borders without having to show a passport, for example, whatever that might look like. Or, heaven forbid, humans API, where we can literally start to programmatically optimize the way we behave as people through incentivization programs and so on. It gets pretty dark quickly in this space here, but in the end, there's a link here to token economics course if you want to see some of these ideas, and it's really fascinating because a lot of this stuff is coming at us very much in the way. If I had come to you in the mid 90s, let's say, maybe many of you weren't even born in the mid 90s. If I had come to your parents or your relatives in the mid 90s with the mobile phone that I have in my hand right now and said, "Can you imagine what I do with this thing every single day?" They would scarcely be able to imagine actually how much of my time I spend on this thing and what value it brings me on a daily basis in terms of organizing my life, staying connected with people, and so on. So it's a pretty big deal now that we're sort of moving past just connecting and reading and writing, but actually to be able to trust this layer. First time in human history, this sort of honest actor where the blockchain guarantees truth. So we can talk about art, for example. These are some pictures from a few different websites online, but some people are creating, and I'm sure some of the fine print is too hard for you to read. Don't worry about that, but just get an idea here of what's going on. There are artists who are creating new material, not just traditional art where you look at something, but art that evolves or that is collaborative, and also property in some cases. As you can see here, virtual property that's been designed. Sellers who are making a king's wage on a monthly basis, selling some of this art online. Actually, you can see these are measured in ETH, each of which is almost $1,500 today at the moment of this recording. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to the top artists annually, and then of course all sorts of creative art. Some of it a little bit more traditional, some of it a little bit silly, but in the end, these are all the kinds of flavors of art and mechanisms of art that are empowered by this blockchain or enabled by this blockchain using a technology called an NFT, non-fungible token. What does that mean? You're talking about literally an ID in a database on the blockchain. That's what an NFT is. A little bit of metadata around it, a little bit of extra stuff like where is the image. But fundamentally, the fact that I own a piece of art on the blockchain simply means that my account is connected with an identifier somewhere on the blockchain. That's it. Imagine an Excel spreadsheet. One column is an ID for the piece of art. The other one is your name. That connection is what is ownership, essentially, now layered onto this new substrate of trust, basically, of truth. Because we put the spreadsheet with two columns in that layer, we can rely on the fact that nobody can lie about the fact that we own this piece of art. Okay, so we talk about games briefly as well. So here on the left, this is from, sorry, just to be clear, the only thing that's related to Near is the right half of the screen, by the way, Paris and this artwork. The rest is from Ethereum. And I'll try and be clear about what's Near and what's not as I move through this. So on the left-hand side here is Flux Protocol's markets, where you can actually predict how an event or some incident is going to come out around sports, politics, startup success or failure, insurance, and so on. And you're basically buying into a market, a prediction market, that allows you to be rewarded for making the right prediction. And this has a significant, impact actually. I can just see another question has come in, noticing that most of the NFTs are priced in Ether, sorry, not in Bitcoin. Why is that? We can talk about that, but in the end, those were screenshots from the Ethereum network. I'm not aware of any NFT markets on the Bitcoin network. If somebody is, you can let me know. But we can talk about why that actually is on Ethereum, if you like, when we get to the questions period again. Here on the bottom right-hand side, so this is Flux Protocol. This is on Near Protocol right now. On the right-hand side, this game where you can design things like a dragon and then maybe sell amulets in the store that you design, and then play those in a game, using an amulet to protect yourself from the dragon that you've just designed. All of this, giving a marketplace for creativity. If you've ever heard of Minecraft or used it, you can imagine sort of Minecraft with economics on top of it in that sense. And you're able to sort of create and deploy these things into a marketplace and use them. This is the other item that's on. So this is not on Near. This is on Ethereum. But this is a drawing program where you can basically draw pixels in this pixel art canvas, and you actually earn money for every pixel that you've drawn, money in the form of avocados in this case that you could trade for bananas, and maybe there's some relationship to cucumbers in there. It's all very strange if you ask me, but in the end, this kind of bridges the gap between games and economics. So let's talk about economics and programmable money for a minute. Maybe you haven't heard of some of these things. I think you'll be interested in them. There's something called kickback events, where people buy tickets. You could buy a ticket, I could buy a ticket. Everybody commits some small amount of Ether or whatever the currency is of the platform. And when you show up, you simply, maybe your Ether gets paid to the event. But if you don't show up, you forfeit your deposit. And that deposit gets distributed to people who actually attend the event. So imagine, what better way to incentivize people to actually show up for something than, say, throwing a party, have everybody pitch in $5, and anybody that doesn't show up, basically their $5 gets paid out to people who do show up. So not only do they attend maybe for free, but they can actually earn money for showing up. And so you can see here the example on the bottom right-hand side. These are just snippets from their website and a Medium post. So that's kickback events. Again, the idea being that there's no bank involved here. There were no lawyers involved in any of this. There's no one enforcing this. It's just the blockchain and a contract, a smart contract that's running on top of the blockchain that says, when you give me money, I'll hold it to the date of the event. If you can demonstrate proof that you were there, and there's a protocol for that, then I'll take your money and give it to the event attendee. But if you can't show me proof that you were there, then in that case, I'm just going to take your money and I'm going to distribute it to people who do show up. This is something like a Wikipedia with money involved. So this Everest.link is the name of this project. Currently, they've got 1,562 on the left-hand side here, links that have been added to this curated list. And there is 16,000 DAI, effectively US dollars, $16,000 that are locked up against that 1,500. Against that 1,500, you see it's about 10x, right? Because it costs about $10 to post a link. So anybody can add a project here. You put 10 DAI, $10 effectively. It's like a token form of dollars called a stable coin, $10 to say, I want to put this project in, this listing. And then anybody can come along and say, this listing is wrong. It doesn't fit here. It's broken. It's not related. It's not relevant. And to say that, to make that challenge, they also pay $10. And then there's kind of like a voting process that happens. There's some people involved that are reviewing these challenges and these claims, and they say, okay, in this case, actually, the challenger is right. In this case, the original person who put the link is right. Whatever they decide in the end, they get paid a little bit for doing the work of making that decision, and then the person who was right gets rewarded, for that. And of course, some of that money gets captured into a reserve bank as well that will pay people out or generally fund the project. So in this way, you have this economy based on people putting high quality links into something like a Wikipedia. You can imagine, today Wikipedia is based on volunteer effort. Tomorrow, it might be actually part-time income. This one's a little bit more complicated. If this is a little bit overwhelming, just focus on the top left-hand side, 3 ways to earn in green and 1 role that pays. So this is a system designed by an organization known as The Graph. They also, by the way, they're the same ones who built this project, this Everest.link project, but this is their real business, not the side project. And what they have is a system for being able to query the blockchain, because the blockchain is set up in a way that it's hard to ask for kind of longitudinal information, like how many times has this thing happened over the last 6 months? It's a very difficult question to ask of the blockchain. Or what are all the things that this particular account has done in the last year? It's a difficult thing to ask of the blockchain. So the Graph makes it easy to ask those kinds of longitudinal questions. And they do that by hiring indexers, that's the left role, this technical indexer role, that are running software that is grabbing the data from the blockchain as it's happening and putting it into a format, a database that's easy to query. Curators who are pointing at things, saying to the indexer, hey, you should check this out, you should check that out, you should check this out. These are important things. And so they get paid to curate stuff that's happening on chain. Delegators who are investors, effectively saying, yeah, I like that project. Here's a little bit more money to support that as a kind of a vote of confidence in the value of that project. And then consumers who are querying this data are actually paying in this Graph network token, GRT. So several projects, if you've heard anything about DeFi or Uniswap and Compound, and you would notice some of these things here, and there's many of these actually. And so anyway, this is kind of the value graph. All of these are linked in the show notes here in the slideshow. There's some links to the articles that I use to pull these images out of. But bottom line is, this is quite a sophisticated kind of microeconomy here that they've created using this programmable money to incentivize the kinds of behaviors that they want from the different roles, the different participants in this world, to help people behave in the way that they want them to in order to get essentially quality data in their API, so that people can build other applications on that and be able to query the blockchain in a useful way. So what do you think? Which of these things that you've seen is maybe most interesting for you? Can you please rank order these ideas? Buying and selling, maybe even making digital art, designing and building these programmable money microeconomies, supporting people and businesses without intermediaries, without the banks, without lawyers, maybe earning irrefutable credentials in a university that decides to support blockchain, or investing or speculating in the market. So what is for you the most interesting? Of course, number go up is a very exciting thing. To imagine that you can throw $1,000 at something and wake up a month later and have $10,000. I agree, and it's incredibly attractive, incredibly interesting. I won't judge you if that's your most favorite item here. I don't want you to misunderstand me, but in the end, there's a lot more going on here than number go up. This is truly a kind of a new space. Again, imagine yourself in the mid-90s, or even if you've sort of ever, it's a bit tricky, I guess, because many people here have grown up with Facebook, I guess, right, and with Twitter. But if you can imagine an age before then, and trying to imagine what it would be like to have a cell phone in your pocket at all times, it's quite a big leap. So we're right at the cusp of something like that. So about 6 answers in right now. Looks like there's still 15 or 16 people online here. So I'll give it just another couple of seconds. Any other thoughts about what's most important to you? So investing and speculating still super popular. Buying and selling digital art makes sense. Supporting people and businesses without intermediaries, a close third there and tie for second place. Microeconomies and credentials is getting no love. All right, so maybe that's enough of this. Let's keep going. So here's a couple of questions. I asked the first one, so I'm just going to assume you don't want to know what that is. If you do, just ask it again. And so here we can talk about this question maybe here. I heard recently that cryptocurrency blockchain has a huge output of energy emissions and such. Do you know if there's anything coming to remedy that? Yeah, I mean, bottom line is this is all about consensus. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But how do you get a group of people to agree on the truth? There has to be something, some some protocol, some algorithm, some agreement, some rules that they kind of do a dance, and at the end of that dance, you can be sure, maybe mathematically provably sure, that they have arrived at truth, at consensus. Because again, there's a lot riding on this. If you want to sort of look at the problem the other way, the current total market value of blockchain still small, maybe 1/10 the size of the gold market, but the entire market is about $1.5 trillion. Imagine there's a big pile of gold sitting right outside your front door worth $1.5 trillion. And all you need to do is lie about who owns that and it's yours. So that's the value of this truth. You can imagine there are governments, there are state agencies, there are organizations, and certainly bad actors who are spending every waking hour trying to figure out how to get that $1.5 trillion because it's literally sitting right there outside your front door in public. It's not hidden. So how then do you get people to agree on the truth such that no government, no state agency, no independent, no matter how much time or resources they have, nobody can lie about the truth about, say, who owns that 1.5 trillion. That's a pretty compelling story. And so blockchain, Bitcoin specifically, uses proof of work consensus, where there is some kind of algorithm that you go through in order to do some calculation to prove that you are running the computer which is processing the transactions that the network is trying to do. So it's like the blockchain is basically saying, as long as you're running a computer, and I know that you're running a computer because you're trying to calculate this number to get the rewards, this proof of work algorithm, then I'm going to go ahead and do the thing that I actually want to do, which is to process transactions for people who want to move money around or get real work done, if you understand. So it's sort of like this part-time job that the people who are maintaining the integrity of the network agree to do. We're going to continue to participate in this proof of work so that we can secure the network. While those computers are running, they can also process these transactions. That's kind of the 1-2 punch of this blockchain story and the consensus algorithms. So Bitcoin and Ethereum both use the same proof of work strategy, but there is a new generation, including an upgrade to Ethereum in Ethereum version 2, and many of these third generation blockchains, including Near and many others, by the way. There's about a dozen of these companies that are serious players in this space. If anybody's curious, I'm happy to send you some reports on this and get a sense of what's going on in the industry. But they're using something called proof of stake. And proof of stake is a little bit different because that is, you basically, instead of calculating some problem, you're simply participating in running the computer, and you get paid interest for locking your money up into an account that will be slashed or penalized if you cheat, if you lie. And so that's proof of stake. So it's much lower energy consumption. You don't need these massive computers that are sort of specialized, ASICs or whatever they call them, that are kind of designed just to run the Bitcoin blockchain. Where parked by the hundreds or by the thousands next to a hydroelectric electric plant to get cheap energy. These are just regular, beefy computers that you use to run the network in proof of stake. But you need money, and you put that money up in a kind of a bond or a guarantee. You interest on that money, 5 to 10% interest annual, to keep that money there. And that money's there as a security, basically saying, I promise not to lie about the truth. Otherwise, I understand the consequences. I might lose some or all of this money that I've put up, against that claim that I'm telling the truth, if that makes sense. That's called proof of stake. And there's many, many dozens, if not hundreds of these consensus algorithms. If you want to look up Encyclopedia of Consensus Algorithms, or how many different consensus algorithms are there, you'll find many, many listicles of these things, an article that's a listicles of these consensus algorithms where they explain them all. But those are the two big ones, proof of work and proof of stake. Okay, so short answer is yes, there are things coming to remedy that. And so I'll assume that question is answered. If you want to ask the same question again because you're not satisfied with my answer, please do that. But that's going to be your responsibility, and that way I can keep the pace. But I won't be bothered in the least if you ask the question 2, 3, 4 times. No big deal at all. I notice most of the NFTs I see are priced in ETH. Why is that if not priced in BTC? Because Bitcoin has a kind of a simpler protocol. Bitcoin is about the movement of monies and IOUs, and there are a few ways that you can extend the protocol to do some other kinds of operations. I'm not a protocol expert, and so I won't be able to list off these differences, but fundamentally, Bitcoin is about the manipulation of money and IOUs and then a little bit of extensibility, whereas Ethereum is basically the Bitcoin type of trust with what's called a Turing complete virtual machine, a computer that you can program with anything. And so that's where you get the flexibility to be able to build things like non-fungible tokens, fungible tokens, the ICO craze of 2016, 2017 that crashed in early 2018. That was all on Ethereum because of the programmable nature of these smart contracts that live on Ethereum. They're very flexible. They say Turing complete. Basically, sort of one simple way to look at it is ask yourself, what is a computer? A computer is a machine that can mimic the behavior of any other machine, including a computer. That's kind of the definition of Turing complete in a nutshell. And so on Ethereum, you have the trust of the blockchain, the trust of Bitcoin type proof of work with this Turing complete programmable machine. You can basically tell it to do anything. And so what people have done is, create this database with identifiers so that you can prove ownership of something. How many of these paintings do you have? How many of those paintings do you have? These pictures, those images. That's the NFT story, is about ownership. But you could also have NFTs that represent university credentials, or the ownership of a house, or the fact that you've gotten married, or your driver's license. In the end, you can think of NFT as a data model, as a kind of a schema or a snapshot, some metadata that is tracked on chain. And so it's irrefutable, cryptographically, verifiably irrefutable data that has some structure to it. That's how you can think of an NFT. Although most of the instances we see are like art and pictures and stuff, the sort of the horizon for what you can do with these things is huge. All right, so I'll just assume that answers that question. Why buy NFTs? Yeah, I mean, look, in the end, number go up, and everybody's excited about that, but it's actually distracting. And if I just tell you a brief story from the late 90s, 98, 99, you couldn't go outside with a laptop without someone tapping you on the shoulder saying, can you help me write a business plan for my website? I want to go get some investors. Everybody was really excited about building a business plan, building a website, making a bunch of money for very little effort. Kind of the sort of the magic of the miracle of free money. It's a story of the golden goose and all that kind of exciting stuff. We don't want to spend our time struggling and trading our time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears for a little bit of pay. We want all the money for no time, no work. And so everybody's really excited about number go up. Whenever number goes up, people get really excited. That's just the way we are as human beings. And so you could say people buy NFTs for speculative reasons. They just want to see the number go up. They want to buy something rare today and then sell it for 10x the price tomorrow, maybe. But there's more to the story. So if you talk about buying an NFT in support of, say, an artist, that's a way to fund work that you care about. And if that NFT is not maybe just a picture, but it also is music, or it represents, some other kind of rare thing, like one-on-one access to a meeting with a coach or a mentor, or maybe some event, some venue, then NFTs get a little bit more interesting. You could talk about NFTs as tickets, for example. So there's all sorts of bits there we can discuss, and we can also talk, and it's part of kind of microeconomy. Like, how could you, if you just sort of sat down with a piece of pen and paper, and you had, I don't know, maybe a block of Post-it notes that you could put some, number on uniquely. What could you do with those Post-it notes and say all your neighbors to agree on something that motivates people? How about an IOU? How about an agreement to take out the trash? How about whatever. And so NFT as an idea is basically this, irrefutable, unique thing that can represent anything that you want on chain. And so the answer then, why buy NFTs, number go up, is maybe the least interesting answer to that question. There are many more. Hopefully that's helpful to you. And it's a huge story. So if you're curious about this, you should definitely do some research. Hardware wallets, are they worth the investment, and are they future-proof? So there is a dependency on all the cryptography of today that there is sort of no known breaks for this cryptography. So quantum computing, which is currently being experimented with, has the ability theoretically to calculate all the possible answers to a cryptographic problem in one operation, in one instant. And that is what sort of makes them strong against cryptography, where you won't be able to protect any secrets in the future from this stuff. But in the end, it's an arms race, right? So today, hardware wallets are definitely worth the investment. You can get hardware wallets for $50 to $100 that basically do not allow your private key to leave your possession. In fact, you won't even know what it is. It'll just be like on this device. You type in a PIN or something, and then messages are signed locally and then leave that hardware device. It's important at this point to kind of ask yourself, like, how is this any different from the web today? And you can imagine, maybe you're not aware of this, every time you log into Facebook, or every time you log into Twitter, every time you log into Gmail, when you type in your username and password, maybe you've noticed, like, you can't see your password. It's just a bunch of little dots or asterisks. That's just a thing the browser is doing to make you feel good. What actually happens when you hit log in is that your username and password travel in plain text. Sure, they're inside of some secure envelope of SSL or whatever, the little green lock on your browser. They travel inside this secure tunnel, but when they hit the Facebook servers, they're right there in plain sight again. And there's a line of code on the Facebook servers, on the Twitter servers, on the Gmail servers, where if a developer wants, they can just print out your password as you typed it in your computer, but they don't. Instead, what they do is they put it through a bit of a meat grinder called a hash, maybe bcrypt or some other algorithm that's a one-way hash that kind of mangles up your plain text password into some other format. And then they compare that format with what they have in the database, because that's all they store, is that encrypted hashed version, let's say, of your password. And it's sort of a one-way thing, right? So that's, you're trusting them not to, say, broadcast your password on the website whenever you send it to them. That's how the entire web today works. Your bank password, Google, Twitter, Facebook, any of these websites where you type in a username and password, you actually send your credentials to them, and you trust that they're going to handle them responsibly. With blockchain technology, you don't send your password to anybody. It stays physically on your computer. It never actually leaves your machine. When you sign a message, you cryptographically sign the message, seal the envelope, and stamp it so that nobody can tamper with it, in fact. And then you send that sealed envelope, signature with you, you send that sealed envelope to the network, where it then gets processed and verified. That's the magic of public key cryptography. So fundamentally, there's this huge difference in the model. And that's why everybody says not your keys, not your coins, or whatever, is because literally if you lose your private key in this case, there's nobody that can help you with that. It's mathematically impossible for them to help you. And so hardware wallets in this case are worth the investment because they basically give you that physical control. Never need to have your keys anywhere on any internet connected device. Basically, you just sort of hook it up with your wallet. The message gets signed locally and then off, and then your keys never leave your physical wallet. So hopefully that helps. Wallet's a bad name for this stuff. It should be called a keychain or a password container, because that's what it is. These private keys are basically just a password. Okay. Okay. So I'll assume that's answered. If you have any other questions, you'll just ask it, and I'll keep moving here. So at this point, I think Marko promised that we would break this show up. I don't know if you want to hear me kind of keep talking, or if you want to spend a little bit of time doing a thing. Marko, I'll just wait a few seconds for you to.
Yeah,
should we do a thing, or should we keep talking? Oh, geez, sorry. Should we do a thing or wait a few? Talk a little bit more. What should we do?
10 minutes break. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's take a 10 minutes break. So here it's 12:35. Let's come back at 12:50. That will be a formal 15-minute break that we have usually in this class. People will probably stay on the Zoom. They will just mute themselves. And then at 12:50, which is in 17 minutes, we'll come back. Please feel free, Sharif, to take a break yourself. And, if anybody is here during the break and wants to ask some questions, that can be optional as well.
Yeah, I'll leave the question slides up. If anybody wants to ask questions, I'm happy to field them, but no pressure. If you've got some questions, you want to discuss something, feel free to throw it up. I'll do my best to answer it. Hopefully this has been useful so far. Thanks for hanging out.
Great. Thank you, Sharif. See you in 15 minutes.
Yeah, you bet. All right, are we back?
Right, 1 2 1 2. It is 12:51. So can you hear me, Sharif?
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump right back into it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. My pleasure. Getting a couple of thumbs up here from the audience as well. So I'll just dive into it, and if people miss something, they can check out the recording. So I'm just going to keep talking for a little bit, and then I actually I've got some things, some games we can play and stuff. If you want to take a look at like what is a contract actually, what does an NFT look like actually, if you want to see what that code looks like. I'm not sure how many programmers we have here, or if anybody actually has any programming experience, but you'd be surprised. You can read code just like English. It's a little bit obtuse. It's like reading Chaucer, or I don't know, but you can make out most of what's going on actually. So in that sense, don't be turned off by the opportunity to read through some software code, because probably about 60 to 80% of it you'll understand just as easily as reading a menu at a restaurant. Okay, so so what's happening exactly? The point here is that it's now more expensive to lie than to tell the truth. I'm not going to spend much time on this slide, but basically there's this fundamental problem with if you have two people trying to communicate over an unreliable or untrusted connection, it's really impossible to guarantee that these messages can go back and forth for various reasons. And so you compensate. You compensate by sending too many messages, or by agreeing to some protocol to send messages on a regular basis until you hear back. And that way you can kind of determine, what is the quality of the connection, and how many messages are getting through. Out of 100, maybe 30 of them get through, something like that. So that's the top left-hand side. The bottom left-hand side is Byzantine Generals Problem, which is this classic computer science problem, I guess, where you've got to answer the question, if you have multiple people who, in this case, it's sort of a war metaphor, you're trying to attack or retreat from this maybe, a castle that you've got under siege or whatever, and you have to make sure that you do it in a coordinated way. The question is, how do you figure out what to do if you have to coordinate? Everybody has to do the same thing, and the only way you communicate is to send messengers back and forth. And these messengers could be captured, they could be converted into lying spies or whatever. And so in the end, basically, how do you deal with trying to get multiple people running several computers to agree on the truth, when in the middle there could be any sort of nonsense happening? How does Alice convince everybody that that Alice pays Bob 100 LD, whatever that is in this example here, and so this is all part of the same kind of question. This is what consensus solves, is effectively you need some minimum threshold of these generals to agree, and then once you have that minimum threshold, then you can presume that what you've got is the truth, and you can lock that in to this sort of blockchainy looking thing at the bottom of the screen. All right, so let's talk about this tech briefly. Like what does this actually look like? Bitcoin is these three technologies. So cryptographically verifiable transactions, meaning I sign some transaction, I say I've done a thing, and I sign it with this cryptographic machinery that says nobody but me can do it. The message hasn't been altered. Nobody can fake that same message. There's a few qualities to this. Decentralized storage and compute, maybe you've heard of like Napster or BitTorrent or any of these systems that basically spread computers around the world and connect these computers in a way that you can distribute storage and compute in different places. And so that's what these networks do. Again, Bitcoin does this at a basic level, is that you have the same code running effectively and the same data being stored effectively across multiple computers around the planet. So if any of them go down, you can just kind of like bring it all back up. And then this idea of a public ledger, so a triple ledger, where a single ledger is maybe like the butcher remembering that you owe them, 3, coins for a cut of beef or whatever. And then the double ledger, that's the single ledger. The double ledger is maybe two companies keeping records of their earnings and debts, two countries, two individuals kind of remembering, and these are sort of the evolution of the idea of a ledger. In fact, a ledger is one of the oldest technologies that we have, because basically the first writing is ledgers. people writing down accounts of how much grain was harvested, or how much gold was owed by somebody. And so this idea of a single ledger, double ledger, now a triple ledger with the public copy. So the public keeps a copy. Literally that 1.5 trillion sitting right outside your front door is there in public. You can see it, every cent of it. That's the idea of this public ledger. So that's Bitcoin: cryptographically verifiable transactions, decentralized storage and compute, public ledger. All three of those technologies coming together to basically define this ground layer of truth that we've talked about. And in Ethereum, being that Bitcoin technology with this Turing complete virtual machine on top of it that lets you run arbitrary code, basically, and the on-chain inputs, the truthy inputs of code and the outputs of data. So what code is running and what's the data output of that that gets deposited on this layer of truth. That's all part of the Ethereum story. But the problem is it's expensive, there's low throughput, and it's hard to scale. And so you've got these other networks doing something about it. And again, take this with a grain of salt, because I've gotten a lot of pushback from the team about how these images are just poor representations of half truths of what's actually going on. So forgive me, but I think it's instructive to still take a look at this and say, yeah, it's kind of, if you squint, it sort of looks like this from a mile away. So the way each of these next four companies is solving, or teams is solving this problem, is a slightly different way, but they're all basically taking sort of this common approach to somehow splitting up the work. So, and then doing it in parallel. So with Near, some transaction comes in, like I want to send some money, or I want to call this function, or whatever it is they want to do. And then that transaction gets potentially split up into multiple receipts across what Near calls a shard. And that's basically different versions of the network running in parallel that are somehow rolled up and communicate together using an approach that databases use at scale called erasure coding, where they basically broadcast copies of the data that they've got over and over and over. And if you can imagine, you send out 1,000 copies, you only need maybe 10 copies to recover the original. So you send out 1,000 just in case. That's the idea of erasure encoding, that you send out more than what you need, basically. And so these shards are constantly communicating and broadcasting information, and that way they stay coordinated. And then every second or so, they kind of agree on the truth. The block time is 1 second. Every second or so, they agree, this is the truth now, this is the truth now, this is the truth now. And you can split these transactions up across these shards. With Polkadot, another organization in this space, they have this idea of a relay chain right down the middle that coordinates and orchestrates and receives communication from several other chains that are working on ascertaining the truth. These parachains, as they're called, collect these transactions, put them through the ringer, and then bring them into the relay chain where they're archived as part of the blockchain. And then these parachains can kind of glob onto each other like a kind of a tree with branches going out. You can imagine sort of this fractal picture. I'm not sure how many layers Polkadot goes out. I know Near better than others, but that's the idea. You sort of scale by duplicating these parachains. And these are completely customizable. You can have your own economy in them, your own token, all sorts of details, whereas Near is homogeneous. It's all sort of one type of token, one type of chain. With Polkadot, you can have all sorts of different kinds of chains. Solana has this idea of a leader time stamping. That's what that little timer is. So every incoming transaction gets a timestamp, and then you can do the work in parallel and then resequence the transactions in an archiver at the end, because you know what time they came through. And that timestamp is something called a verifiable delay function, basically a recursive SHA-256. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Kind of timestamps these things so that you can put them back in order. And then Avalanche is this specialized structure where you have a C chain that's like Ethereum, and then an X chain that's just for tokens and coins and number go up, and then a P chain that's about governance and the management of the protocol. So in that way, each of these chains can be specialized and tuned for whatever transactions they're handling, and that makes them all much more performant. And so you get the idea that it's all about parallelizing work. In the end, this is sort of a fundamental question. How do you get more? You do more of it through the pipe. You do more pipes, basically more of it at the same time. All right, everybody's kind of taking a different approach. And so here's a sample application. Imagine you wake up one morning, someone's like, hey, have you heard of Nearly Neighbors? This is a demo that I built, okay? And so here you come in and you're like, yeah, what is it? How does it work? Well, your friend tells you, if you want, you can have a coffee shop right down the street, and you can actually prepay for 50% discount or 80% discount. Again, remember, these are all programmable money economics. 80% discount on your coffee for up to a year if you want. Oh, that sounds great. I drink, I don't know, maybe $1 million of coffee every month. Why don't I put in a little bit of money, and that way I can save on that. And so you type in this proposal and you put in some funding goal or whatever. You say, if there's a coffee shop here and they make $1,000 and someone's going to make this coffee shop. Other people show up on the site and they notice, hey, there's a coffee shop here. Maybe they want to add their support. They put in a little bit of money, and then in the end, this project, has some progress. It's almost funded. In this case, an art studio. Maybe it's a coffee shop. But at some point, it hits the threshold of funding, and then someone says, "Yep, I'm going to take this, $250,000 that's there ready to fund a coffee shop. I'm going to launch a coffee shop with that, and I'm going to give all my early supporters, funding." Think of Kickstarter, but on blockchain. No banks, no Stripe, no lawyers, no intermediaries whatsoever. It's just you and the blockchain committing your money. And if nobody, say the terms of the deal are, if nobody makes a coffee shop, you get your money back in 90 days. Right? So all of this stuff can be programmed, and all of these interactions can be handled by this ultimate honest actor, the blockchain, that can't lie, because it's more expensive to lie than it is to tell the truth. And so you can actually go to this project. It's on GitHub. If you're a programmer, you're curious, or if you've never been to GitHub, you should totally check it out, because there's a lot of code there and it's totally readable. GitHub.com/learn-near, and then nearly-neighbors is the repository. And it's just like it's like a website, right? And there you can go and look at the code and you can poke around and stuff and get a sense of how it works. Totally accessible if you're not a programmer, but brace yourself. You might go googly-eyed a little bit while you're reading through the code. And so in the end, for programmers in the audience, this includes contracts currently in assembly script, but there will be a version in Rust, unit tests, simulation tests, mock-ups for the front end as you can see them, and then documentation as you see kind of squinting on the screen, this fine print, to explain how you might actually build this project yourself. So if you know anybody who's a web developer, they can take this project without knowing anything about blockchain. They can take this project and actually build it, because all that's left is the web side, the web development technology. Your friend that builds mobile applications or web applications, you could call them up today, say, go to this URL, build this application, and you can launch it tomorrow. And this is not just Near doing this, by the way. This is many, many other organizations and many, many other teams that are basically racing to expose this technology to the world, because the more people that are building and using this, the faster we can realize this this future that we're all kind of ready and waiting to experience. Okay, so that's kind of what this technology looks like. So now, what you're interested, what can you actually do? If you want, you can go to this Figment Learn pathway for Near and earn 10 to 20 bucks like in 30 minutes today. And it's basically, you're following a tutorial, you're writing a little bit of code, you're sending some transactions, and then at the end you get paid out basically by us for checking out this technology. So if you can imagine getting paid to learn, here it is, welcome to the future. The Bounties program is a place where you can actually go and earn to solve some of our ideas. That's why I've bolded that part. Our idea. So we've put these bounties up and said, hey, come check this stuff out. We could use your help. Grants program is, a higher order of magnitude here, 10 to 100K in tokens, longer time scale, but it's your ideas. So if you have something you want to do, educational related, startup related, open source, there's all sorts of opportunities. You can check out the grants program, and these are all links in the slides. I'll share them here shortly. And then this Open Web Collective. So last year, organizations raised about 15 million. These are basically entrepreneurs, such as yourselves, who've decided they want to try their hand at starting a business. And so they, design a business plan, and they put together this business, and they join this collective. Again, there are many such collectives around where people plug into these kinds of things, like Gitcoin and Gitcoin Kernel, for example. They have this 8-week fellowship where you can go and hang out with other entrepreneurs and learn how to start your business. So it's pretty sweet. All right, lots of things to do there. And here's what the Near pathway tutorials looks like briefly. Basically just step-by-step tutorial. and we pay you to give this a shot. Grants, you basically click some buttons, fill out an application. You should totally try it. No harm, no foul. It doesn't cost anything for you to check this out and actually submit a grant. And then for the bounties, it's basically a list of projects, mostly technical. You can go through and actually check those out if you're curious. And then, what else can you do? So there's a couple of newsletters here that I've linked for you. There's some tutorials to earn and learn, and you can go and try out spending some crypto. NFT marketplaces are some of the easiest things to plug into, because you basically just you buy a little art online for a couple of bucks. And then there's one of the newsletters from the first line has this idea of a bankless money verb. The newsletter is called Bankless, and it's pretty good. And they have this idea, of lending, borrowing, staking, all these different things you can do in a bankless society. You should totally check that out. And maybe you can get a grant to build something of your own if you want. But in the end, I think my advice to you is just sort of one simple thing here before we move on, which is kind of get past the get rich quick thing and the number go up thing. Fundamentally, it's a distraction. I can just promise you that. It's not what the Facebook and Twitter founders were thinking about in the late 90s when they were building their first versions of these kinds of technologies. It really is about the tech. Stay focused there, stay focused on the business, and actually make something, and you'll find yourself plugging right into a welcoming community. Again, not just Near, but many other communities that are out there doing similar things. Okay, so there's no other questions here. Maybe I could just pause there for a minute if anybody has any questions. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes. And then, Marko, we've got about, what, like 15, 20 minutes left? Is it till 1:30?
Can you hear me, Sharif?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually have 40 minutes.
40 minutes, great. Yeah, okay. So,
hold on. So it's 1 to 7, 1:10. I'm sorry, 33 minutes, 33 minutes.
Yeah, cool. So I've got a couple of things we can do if people want to check out, the code and see how that works. If there aren't any questions, we can come back to this. But thank you so much for your attention. Near.org/learn and near.org/help are two of the fastest ways to get into sort of next steps for you. All right, so let's see here. I've got a couple of other slides that I have put aside here. We can take a look at these. All right, so can I just get a quick, yeah, nice, Cameron talking about the best way to make money in crypto is to jump into the tech, teach, and build. Yeah, absolutely right. That's the gospel right there. Okay, so if I can just get a quick kind of, thumbs up, I think, I'm hoping everybody can easily react with like a thumbs up or something in this. How do you actually do that? I don't know. But you ought to be able to like react with a thumbs up. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of people are reacting with thumbs up. Okay, that's fantastic. So if you put your thumbs down and then answer this question with some thumbs up, do you want to spend a little bit of time looking through some code and playing, with this kind of scavenger hunt? Through some of these technologies. Give me a thumbs up to see who's interested in doing that. Do you want to spend a little bit of time playing some games, kind of actually looking at some code, looking at some tech, or should we do something else with the next, 30 minutes or so? What's the right move here? It looks like a couple of people want to play with the tech. You have access to the slides, by the way. So if it's a small minority in the group that wants to play with the tech, I don't want to inflict this adventure on you. I'm happy to spend time talking about anything else. We can take questions from the audience, take questions on the Slido, kind of live questions. We could do something else together if you like. But in the end, I want to keep this interactive and high priority for you so that you don't feel like you're kind of being dragged through an experience. Okay, so just a couple of people have kind of flickered on and off with the thumbs up. It doesn't seem like everybody wants to dig into it. Someone's asking, what are the other options? Yeah, so here's an option. We have these questions from before. If you want to keep asking questions, you're welcome to do that. You could turn your mic on and we can have a conversation, like a couple of adults just kind of talking things out. If you want to ask instead of typing it into the question, that's fine. Maybe I can ask you some questions. There's all sorts of things we can do, just people spending time together, and we've got about 30 minutes. So what I had planned was a couple of these games, but it seems like only a few people want to play them. So I'm suggesting probably it makes sense for people to kind of check these out on their own. It sort of looks like this, by the way.
Sharif, let's do one game. I think that would be exciting. I think that's something that I was looking forward to, and let's check it out. I think we can do that in 15 minutes, and there's probably still some time for questions.
Yeah, sure. I mean, probably less than 15 minutes. In fact, yeah, we can try this one scavenger hunt. So here's the scavenger hunt. I'll send it to you right here. Basically, the idea here is, can you check out this, this tool? This is about sort of exploring the near platform. Can you check out this tool and give me an idea of the combinations of front end tech and contract code that you can use? And so you have to read through this. If you already know the answer, it takes about 30 seconds. Most likely time is maybe 5 minutes, and maybe time to quit is if it takes us 10 minutes or more. And so you can just post your answer. Maybe you can send me, here, front end, X, Y, Z. And instead of sending it to everyone, you would just pick from the list in the chat. You would pick my name and send it to me as a private message in Zoom. That would work. And then here's the rest of this. You can read this for hints and stuff. It'll kind of walk you through how it works. Okay. So why don't we give that a shot? I'll start the timer now and give you about 5 minutes. Ready? Go. So just a reminder to send me the private message in Zoom when you're going to answer. Coming up pretty close on 5 minutes here. How's anybody doing? Anybody close?
Does anybody have any questions or would like help?
Here's another question. We're at 5 minutes. Can you give me a thumbs up if you're trying? Give me a thumbs up if you're actually trying to work on it. Yeah, no shame if you're not, no problem. I'm not gonna get on your back about it. Just want to get a sense of how many people are working on it. Looks like 4 people are working on it. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that, Juan. Yeah, Rosa. If you want to have a sense about what to do here, this can be a little bit disorienting if you've never used a terminal in your computer before. But you're basically looking for something that looks like this. That you can type something like dir or ls, this kind of stuff in here. Yeah, if you've ever seen anything like this in sort of this terminal, then that's where you need to be.
So Sharif, if nobody comes back with the correct answer in the next couple of minutes, would you walk us through the steps of this challenge so everybody get to see what was expected from them?
Yeah, gladly. So we're almost at 7 minutes. I'll give it about 3 more minutes here. Okay, nice. Yeah, congratulations to the first person who got the answer. Looks like we got our first answer. Nice. If you do get the answer, I'm not just going to say your name out loud if you don't want me to say it. So I'll ask you, do you want me to say it out loud? Okay, great. Yeah. So so it was Juan Lam. Congratulations for getting the right answer in under 8.5 minutes. So that's strong. If you haven't seen any of this tech before, you haven't done this before, that's incredibly fast. If you have seen it before, then sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get things set up. So no worries at all. Okay, so coming up on 10 minutes, I think one student who is able to do this. Is anybody want like a few more seconds? Please throw a thumbs up if you want maybe 30 seconds or a minute more. Just give me a thumbs up if you want a few more seconds. Okay, just a few more seconds. There's a request coming in, so let's take it to 11 minutes. See if we can get one more student solving the problem, and then I'll show you how I did it over here. All right, so almost at 11 minutes. Just a few more seconds. 10, 9, 8. Isn't the stress exciting? I doubt it. Okay, so all right, so that's about 11 minutes right there. Let's go ahead and take a look on my screen. I'll show you how I did it. Maybe you can race me if you're still if you're about to finish. Maybe you can try and actually race me to see if you can get it done locally before I post it here to the screen. So step number 1 was to visit near.org. Okay, that's this website, and on this website here. We just kind of introduced the company a little bit. And so it says here, follow the instructions to build your first app in 5 minutes, try it. And that's literally right here, this very first thing that you see, okay? Our story is quite simple. We make it easy to build on the blockchain. And so we really want people to see that as soon as they arrive. It's super easy to get this done. And so the first thing that we invite you to do is to use something called Create Near App, which is a utility that we modeled after another popular tool called Create React App. But basically, it's a tool, you run it, and then it makes an application kind of template for you, scaffolding for you, and then you can start from there. So if you have this technology called Node.js installed, then you can just go ahead and run the next command. If you don't have this, you're going to have to install this. And so this, this is a matter of opening this up, finding your operating system, maybe Windows or Node. You click install. And then it sort of installs this software locally, and you're off to the races. That's obviously it's going to depend a lot on your connection speed, but in general, this is a pretty quick show. And so you installed Node, and now you're ready to try this command. And so this is the command here: npx create React app. You would just copy and paste that or type it out, and you hit enter, and then this will actually go and fetch this application. That's what npx does from the interwebs, and then basically tell you here's the front end tech and here's the contract tech. So these are the answers to that question right here, and you can use help if you want to as well. You can add this, and it'll basically show the same screen there. But basically, this is the front end tech and the contract tech. And so what this means is when you use Create Near App, what you're going to get is this contract technology using either assembly script, which looks a lot like JavaScript if you're familiar with it, or TypeScript. And then Rust is a different language. So it's one or the other, and it defaults to assembly script. And then in terms of the front end, that's the code that you see on the website side of things. There's code running there that's called vanilla JavaScript, or React, Vue, and Angular are 3 flavors of slightly more complicated JavaScript that let you build, larger, fancier applications. The kind, where you see things kind of moving around and changing on the screen, like you do in Twitter and Facebook while you're using the application. That's typically React, Vue, or Angular. In fact, React is a Facebook sourced technology. Facebook made this. Okay, so that answers the question. The correct answer would be front end, vanilla, React, Vue, Angular, and then contract, assembly script, and Rust. All right, any questions about that? All right, well, I mean, you have this, this presentation here. It is at this URL, bit.ly near-uf. That'll open up this presentation for you. So I'll just post that right here as well. And that way you can have it, and anybody that has you know, seen it on the shared screen can dive into it as well. So that's this link. That'll get you right to the presentation slides, and you can see, you know, the notes and slides and other hidden slides that I've added there that we didn't cover in this presentation. Okay, well, if that yeah, Joseph is saying that this -- help wasn't working. It was supposed to be .help. That's terrible, Joseph. I'm sorry about that. Obviously, we need to fix that. It shouldn't be so difficult. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so if you have any other questions or anything else that you want to bring up, or if you just want to like unmute your microphone and jump into the conversation, we've got, I guess, 10, 12 more minutes to talk. Or Marko, if there's anything else that you want us to cover, we can do that.
If there are questions, I think the questions and answers will be the ideal next step forward. I have a question for the beginning to start, so to say. So, you know, you mentioned that you come from the Near protocol, and you spoke about it a little bit, but maybe can you tell us a little bit about what is Near, what is unique about it, and how does it compare to other protocols that people might be familiar with, like, is it, you know, similar to Bitcoin? Is it similar to Ethereum? Is it similar to something else? You know, from your background, what are the biggest arguments for onboarding new developers and people who might be interested in Near?
Yeah, let me give it a shot. So I think the place to fit this technology is in the group of you know, smart contract platforms. So that means you can build software and deploy it onto a system that guarantees truth, that guarantees that things will behave as expected, and that you get money and identity as primitives, as a data type, in the same way that you might have a number in any other program, or a Boolean, you know, true, false, in any other program. You can now deal with literally money. You don't need a bank. You don't need anybody to approve that or sanction the fact that you've got this money or this identity. It is cryptographically secure and cryptographically verifiable, sitting there as a variable right in your code. So that's huge. In terms of what makes Near different from Ethereum, let's say, or some of the other blockchain technologies that are out there. So you know, Bitcoin is fundamentally about moving money. You can think of it as just a collection of IOUs from one account to another. That's what Bitcoin is tracking, with some other kind of operations, simple operations you can do on top of that. Ethereum is running any arbitrary program and then tracking that arbitrary program. But it's because it's a first generation, maybe a little bit slow and doesn't scale so well. And so what Near does, along with many other platforms in this smart contract space, is try and solve the scalability problem. And we take the approach of kind of scalable databases, whereas other people take other kinds of approaches. And so what Near is providing is basically this way to use this technology to program this kind of programmable money and programmable truth, to program this in a way that scales, that lets you sort of build applications that move quickly and respond well to people as they're using them. And from a user perspective, this is interesting because you might have an idea for an application, a need for something, and you might ask for that of people or businesses that you are connected with somehow, and say, hey, have you heard of this technology? Again, whether it's Near or any one of these other platforms, there's a lot of similarity actually in this space. Although in the end, some of these technologies have some differences which are meaningful and interesting. Near's account model, for example, is very flexible and simple and easy to reason about for developers and for users. Near's management of keys and security around how you manage your identity is also very flexible and allows for some features that several other networks don't allow. So in that case, there are some differences. But as a user, you're basically saying, I want to be able to use this new technology. Like maybe 20 years ago, you may have said, I want to use an iPhone, and that to be sort of a dream that might come true someday. Whereas as a developer, as someone who's working with this technology, you want to take advantage of the platform that's going to give you sort of the fastest time to market, the ability to design and build and deliver software that gets out of your way so that you can get to your customers and produce things that are good for them. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how Near fits into the story and what's good about Near.
Thanks, you. Thank you, Sharif.
Sure.
I do not see the questions here when I'm standing at a podium. So if there are questions, please go for that.
There's no questions right now.
All right. So everybody, we have about 7 more minutes. If you have questions, please include them here. If not, I'll continue asking my questions to Sharif. So Sharif, in the situation where somebody is about to graduate, and most people here will graduate either this spring or next spring. Nice. So, what is the next best step for somebody to kind of get an understanding of what, most of the students are looking into job potentials, right? Yeah. And that's one of the biggest concerns in terms of like, well, is blockchain something that will help me with this? Is this something that will be even around in a couple of years? Or am I kind of wasting my time learning about this tech? And if I'm not wasting my time, what should be my next, what should be my 1, 2, 3 step? Like, what is the first step that I should do other than taking this class, obviously? And then following that, what can I do maybe over this summer to get myself in a position to score a really good paying job anytime soon?
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question, right? So you're going to get a loaded answer, Marko. Sorry, but I think it's a question of like what kind of job do you want, right? So if you want to work for somebody else, and you want someone else to help kind of direct your attention, then there's many jobs that offer that sort of thing. You can plug into a kind of a professional circuit, like being a lawyer or a doctor, or one of these kind of areas where the path is actually quite clear. You spend several years kind of working through some body of knowledge, and then you emerge on the other side with the right to work in that space. But if you don't want to kind of follow that sort of clear path, if instead you want maybe choose your own adventure type work, then you might consider, how is the world changing around me, and how can I take advantage of that change? Because there are just countless opportunities around you at any point. And especially when you're in your early or mid 20s, you have this sort of wonderful opportunity of about 10 or 15 years where you can make 1,000 mistakes, and you won't sort of suffer for them. You'll be able to recover, actually. And so there's this window of opportunity where you can really do a lot with your time and experiment in some pretty exciting ways. And so what I would recommend is focus on learning and making. If you can produce things, especially in this sort of technical world, that outweighs just about any kind of credential you can get if you're the kind of person who can make a thing, especially if you can sort of decide to make a thing and then you make it. That is worth its weight in gold in a market where many people kind of talk about doing a thing but never do it, or try and make a thing but fail for some reason. If you can actually decide to make a thing and then make it, that's amazing. And if you're also a nice person, you're a kind person, you're a thoughtful person, you're a good person to work with, well, then you're in the top 1% of 1% right there. So the world's your oyster. If that helps from a technical perspective, you should really just be focused on making. And I wouldn't wait to ask anybody's permission about what to make. I would just start making things because you get better as you make something. Your first few things that you make will probably be trash, and then you'll get better at it. And eventually, within a year or two of trying and failing, you'll get to the point where you can make something that other people care to look at.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other questions, please feel free to share any last thoughts or impressions that you may have. But we have only a couple more minutes, so we are ready to kind of slowly wind down the conversation. I'll give 30 more seconds to any other questions that students may have at the moment.
Nice. Yeah. So if you have any questions, you can post them to slido.com/uf. I don't see any questions appearing yet. They'll show up on this slide, or you can post them into the Slack, I guess. The nice thing about the Slido is that they'll go on record as opposed to the Slack chat. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate it. Good hustle on digging into that create near app answer. Any other questions? Any other comments?
If there are no questions, hi, this is Cameron Dennis, also work at Near. I would love just a quick opportunity to share a couple opportunities with class.
Go ahead, Cameron.
Great. So yeah, Sharif, thanks again for doing this, and awesome explanation of what students can do after, or like in the time in which they want to go get a job and now. So if you are looking for a job in the blockchain space, there's this amazing nonprofit, full disclosure, I run it. It's called the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. We help get people jobs in this space. I came and spoke at this class a couple of weeks ago, but there is an opportunity for you to start working right now and start getting paid just reading Medium blogs. So the way that information travels in this industry primarily is through Twitter, Discord, and Medium. And a lot of the times the information in Medium does not go, is not, I guess, interpreted by as many people as possible because it's not audio. So we are willing to pay people $100 for every hour of content recorded to just record yourself, read articles. It's a pretty cool opportunity to learn about the space and to make money in it. So yeah, it's a great first step. Definitely go to baf.network, BAF.network, and become a member. You can schedule a call with me there and I'll tell you more about it. But yeah, in short, or you can message me on Twitter, DM me, just at Cameron_Dennis. And that's about it.
Hey, Sharif, can you maybe put in a comment chat both his email as well as the URL that you mentioned, if you know what it is?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Cameron, can you just mention it again? Is that BAF Network?
Yeah, blockchainacceleration.org or BAF.network is the name of the website.
Nice.
You can also email me directly at Cameron.near.
Yeah, great. And I just posted the link to BAF.network.
Great, great. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Sharif, for awesome visit here. We really very much appreciate your time and the effort that you put into this presentation.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to hosting you again, probably next time in the form of a Gator Blockchain Club. As I was just talking in the background with Brandon, you know, the Blockchain Gator Club basically existed, kind of went down, and now we have 26 people interested in joining it. So we are going strong, and soon we'll be publishing the schedule for the meetings, and we'll look forward to inviting you to be a guest in one of our meetings in the next couple of weeks to months.
That would be a pleasure.
Again, Sharif.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will be seeing each other this Wednesday, and we'll continue with our regular programming and talking about blockchain mechanics, and specifically with a focus on Bitcoin. Thank you all. Thank you, Sharif. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Hello. Hi. So I'm not sure if this is recorded. I thought I did, but now no. Either stopped already on its own, or I did not start it. Did it get recorded automatically by the regular? Yeah.
Oh, because it's you. So, join the meeting before you. I think what happened is when you joined the meeting, you took a it should have been in the backup. Okay, I have to jump into a meeting next class, but yeah, let me know because this is something that I need to put on my class. All right, fingers crossed. Let me know how it goes. Okay. Thanks. Ready?
Yeah, got a question for you. What do I need to send you that can broadcast your screen?
You don't have to do anything. Okay. Yeah. Go to